Hey, how are you this morning? It is 9 a.m. in Portland, Oregon right now when we start this show today. And it's live, and we're taking calls. Yeah, we're taking calls. If you want to call in, 503 234 0762. 503 234 0762. That's the pretty easy number to remember. So if you're listening to this show later in the day, don't try to call in, because we do record it and it's played back on various platforms, as well as our own TalkCast, PDX.com. But we're on Pacific Coast time because we're in the beautiful state of Oregon, in the gorgeous Rose City of Portland. This city has gotten a lot of bashing from the media, and I call my mother and sister back east, and they're like, "Oh, how's the homeless problem?" My sister asked me, "Hey, Ken, did you move to another side of the city? Are you still in Port?" I'm like, "Why would I leave?" "Well, the homeless people, and it's look at there. It's a bad scene. I'm not going to say it's not bad, but it's also a situation that we kind of ignore after a while because you get used to it. They're not bothering you, the homeless people. They're just living miserable lives on the sidewalks in tents. Or as my mother said today in this morning when I was talking to her, some people like to be independent. And they say some of the homeless people are independent and they enjoy the life, which I can't buy. I had to say, "Ma, nobody enjoys living on a sidewalk in a tent, especially in the wintertime." "That's right. They're out there in the winter too?" I'm like, "Yes." Their homelessness sometimes doesn't go away at wintertime. It's not like they're birds flying south for the winter. They kind of hang around for the year. But Portland itself is really I love discovering the city. It's fantastic. This is a great city. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. I literally walked the street yesterday smoking a cigar and saying to myself, even talking out loud as I do sometimes, because it's something I've become used to in this pandemic due to the lack of people to communicate with on a daily basis. And I say to myself, boy, this is a great city. I love Portland. And I do. It's got amazing food truck scene, as we document on our Tasty Good PDX videos every week about the great food here. But right now, the city is beautiful. It is a rose city. I don't see a lot of roses, some in the gardens, but it's a plethora of flowers and greenery and trees. There's a lot of trees in the neighborhoods around here. We're on the Central East Side, and there's one street where the trees, massive cedars and oak trees. I mean, I've never seen such old growth trees in a city before as I do in Portland. And they built, there's just a whole line of them, and they go on for neighborhoods. And there's this one street where it's just formed a canopy around the road. It's like a tunnel going down the street. But I'm talking massive trees, like they're 100 feet up with this canopy over the top of the road. And all the homes are meticulously landscaped, and they're little Victorian, beautiful homes. And I said to myself as I walked this street yesterday, God, just give me one of these homes, right? This is my goal now, my dream, to live on this street specifically. I love it that much. I've never encountered such beauty and such a residential community feel. People walking around, enjoying the neighborhood. They have circular rotaries at the end of these roads on almost every street that is lined with beautiful gardens and flowers and brushes and bushes and benches to sit on and a green area. Every one of these like roads leads into this circular rotary of this, and it's beautiful. I just sat in the bench. Another guy was sitting over there, and then another bench. There was a couple of gals, and quiet, the birds, and just a beautiful scent in the air. Fantastic. I've never seen such wonderful neighborhoods. They've really planned it out well. They've grown nicely over the decades here in Portland. So it is a great city, and I don't want to hear anybody say anything other than that. Because I know, after 3 months, there is no place else I want to be than Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
It's true. Central East Side, too. I want nothing to do with what's going on in downtown, the Pearl District. I'm a Central East Side guy. This is a great community over here. They got all these different neighborhoods, as I'm finding out. The different, I don't know so much call them districts, the neighborhoods. How many did we say the other day? We were talking to somebody that came in, and he's been here for a while, and he was telling me, oh, I live over in this neighborhood. And he mentioned the name, and I was like, what are you talking about? What did you just say? And he's
There's
like,
a lot of different neighborhoods.
yeah, what was the one he said he was in? It was,
I don't remember.
But name a few.
Slabtown, Hawthorne, Belmont. There's all kinds of different neighborhoods.
He said there's like 50 in the Central East Side. I don't know, dozens. And they all have their neighborhood communities. So that's what's great about this city. And if you want to visit a city this year, come to Portland. It's opening up. By the way, Portland's going to be in the low risk category by the end of this week. Thank you, Governor Kate Brown. And that means 50% capacity for restaurants and businesses indoors. We're also going to be close to a situation where there'll be plenty of outdoor activities going on. By July, we should be 100% open. But in June, by the end of this week, 50% capacity indoors. So if you're thinking of going to a city this summer, first of all, you'll get some great deals on hotels. Come to Portland, Oregon. There's a river walk area around the entire Willamette River that separates the two sides of the city. They have a ferry, 2 ferries that take you on trips up and down the Willamette. There's a beautiful parkway along the river. You can get a great deal on a hotel. Just talked to a lady Sunday. I went out to have a cup of coffee at the Grand Hotel on Grand Avenue, right down the road from me. Beautifully renovated. 19th century hotel, just opened 2 weeks ago. Gorgeous. But on the Central East Side, not in downtown. So it doesn't get the exposure that you might see by the tourists on the other side of town over the bridges. So I bumped into a woman who was waiting for a cup of coffee with me in the beautiful little bakery that they have there. Michigan, visiting her son, she said. I said, really? How'd you find this hotel? Oh, online, I looked it up. My son told me. I said, how much you pay for the room? Because we're talking luxury rooms here, even though it's right across the street, there's homeless people. I'm not going to lie. But the hotel itself is got like the copper old roof. It's beautiful inside. $115 for a beautiful queen or king bed. You can't get a price like that in any major city in America right now. So if you want to see a city, you come to Portland. The Rose City is waiting for you. And you'll have a good time. If you come in July or the middle of June and through the summer, you're going to see the best weather. You're going to have the best food. The people will embrace you when you come in because they can't wait to see tourists again. And you're going to get some fantastic rates on hotels. And they've got a bunch of beautiful boutique hotels and on and on and on. I can't say enough about how beautiful this city is right now and throughout the entire spring, early fall. It's the best place to visit. Get on a plane, get on a train, and come on over. With that said, let's talk about something issue-oriented with the state, which is there are 5 counties that aren't happy with Oregon. Excuse me, I'm going to have a cup of coffee. Oh, that's good. Yes, there's 5 cities that want 5 counties that want the Greater Idaho movement to be realized. Because they're very unhappy in eastern Oregon, where it's rural, And there's approximately 65,000 people in these 5 counties that are conservative people. They vote Republican, unlike Multnomah County, where Portland is, and the western side, which is more liberal. And they want to secede. They want to be part of Idaho. They're really unhappy. They don't think they have representation properly in what is a liberal government in their minds, which to me seems kind of crazy, but nonetheless, they had a non-binding vote. They're going to meet again this in June to talk further about separating from the state of Oregon. Grant, Baker, Lake, Sherman, Malheur counties are the 5 that are currently in revolt. A minuscule population, but they want out of the state of Oregon. 63,000 or so they have. People covering an area of 25,000 square miles. I'm sorry, 26,000 square miles. We're talking rural, very rural area. And I
kind of like it out there, though.
I do too. It's beautiful. It's God's country. I mean, I was looking at some of the pictures of areas around John Day, one of the bigger communities of 2,000 people. And they have the Painted Mountains. They have a place where the high desert meets forest. They have massive rivers. The Snake is nearby in Idaho. Then you have the John Day River. They have a steelhead trout fishery, Chinook salmon, elk herds. We're talking beautiful. God's country. It's hard to believe it's even in our back door. 5 hours from Portland. And they don't want to be a part of the state anymore. Getting back to the issue. But a gorgeous area. If Oregon lost it, it would be a great loss to the state, and Oregon's not going to lose it because it's never going to happen. I'm sorry, people. You're not seceding from the state of Oregon. They drew the lines, the borders, hundreds of years ago, whenever they did, 100 years. I don't know when they did the borders, but it's been a long time. It was well thought out, I guess, and you're going to be a part of Oregon whether you like it or not. Because Congress isn't going to approve it. I assure you the state legislature is not going to approve it. The governor's not going to want it. If you had that happen, can you imagine what would happen to other states? You know, California's talked about dividing into 2 states. Are we going to let that happen? Texas has been talked not only of dividing, wants to be in its own country, it is talked about. I mean, upper state New York, another rural area, wants to get away and be their own state because they're not represented well in New York City, which dominates politics. No, if we let this one happen in Oregon, then we would certainly unleash a movement across America where this could happen in all sorts of states and mass pandemonium. No, it cannot happen. I was talking to a woman on the phone the other day down in that area. I was just inquiring about the places to stay in John Day. You know what she was talking about? She kind of mentioned off the cuff, Civil War. Seriously, Civil War came out of her mouth. We could be going down that path, she said. I'm not sure if they've had just too much time in their hands in these small communities and a little too much time to think about things. There ain't going to be no Civil War. There's not going to be a secession. You just made it through a pandemic. Be happy you survived. Please. And stop with this bullshit rhetoric that we want to leave the state and become Greater Idaho. It won't be so pretty on the other side, maybe. And by the way, maybe Idaho doesn't want you. They might be happy the way things are. What do they seek to gain? Some disgruntled conservatives in the eastern part of the state that didn't want to be a part of Oregon. Now they want to be a part of Idaho because they think that more conservative people are in Idaho. Thus, you have a greater representation as a state. I got news for you. Boise's probably pretty liberal. And like every city, dominates politics. And by the way, things can change. Your children may become liberal. Then suddenly you have a big liberal state that you expanded into. Politics change. People's minds change. So this idea of the secession of Oregon counties in the eastern part of the state to Idaho is not going to happen, and it's really a waste of time. And this is the last time I'll probably talk about it. But I just thought when it was first brought up, or I started reading about it, I was a little surprised to even hear this was going on. I was thinking to myself, did I misread that? Or did some people say they want to leave the state of Oregon, which is a gorgeous state, with a beautiful city? And I wondered to myself, why would anybody want to leave this beautiful state as it is? But you can find disgruntled people in all corners of the map. And in this case, that corner is the central side, in the south central east side of Oregon to the eastern borders. And we'll see how that unfolds, but it's really just a waste of time. 234-0762, 503-234-0762. We actually take phone calls on this show. It's a talk show taking calls from listeners, but it's not a radio station. It's digital. Isn't that interesting? Breakthrough. It's game changer. Groundbreaking. So one of these days we will get a call. Right now we're live. We're not really haven't publicized it. We're not promoting it a lot. So a lot of people don't even know I'm live right now. If you're hearing this or watching this later on in the day, it'll be the recorded session of this episode today. But right now and every day, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, at least right now, my show, Citizen Smith, will be broadcasting. I don't know if I use that term. We'll be streaming live at 9 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here at TalkCast PDX in Portland, Oregon. No time restraints. We start talking and a lot of calls are coming in. We'll continue. It's not like we have to break for news at the top of the hour. So just keep that in mind as you're listening to the recorded session that you may not have caught the 9 a.m. show, that every week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific time, Citizen Smith, live, taking your phone calls to include you in the conversation and your opinions. That's called Talk Digital, also known in another world as Talk Radio, but we're changing the platform. And there's no regulations on what you can say. That doesn't mean we embrace swearing and anything you want to say, but, we don't have certain FCC guidelines that we have to follow. So, all right, it's time to talk about this little issue that I've been waiting to talk about regarding China and the Wuhan lab leak of the virus that is being more strongly suggested by the president, by people close to the president, top health advisors. I'm talking about the Wuhan Institute of Virology, which I had talked about a month ago, and then before that I always said, isn't it ironic or too coincidental that the coronavirus broke out in a city in China, Wuhan, where there's also an Institute of Virology where they're experimenting and studying coronavirus. Not 5 miles from the market they say it broke out. Too coincidental? I'm no conspiracy theorist, but as I've said, it's too coincidental. It could have broken out in any city, say, in China, but it broke out in the very city where they were studying the virus. Since like 2012, when they went into the bats of bat caves of southern Yunnan, and some people that were studying the guano, the bat feces, contracted the virus. 2012. And then they started studying it and bringing it into this virology institute. in Wuhan. And now the movement is afoot. The plea from President Biden's top coronavirus advisors, including Andy Slavitt, who's been very critical now of WHO in China, and thinks that WHO, which did a findings research and released their findings in March, dismissing, quote, extremely unlikely the possibility that the virus had emerged accidentally from a laboratory. People were suspicious of that finding, thinking the WHO, first of all, didn't have enough access to determine that, and China wasn't as transparent as need be to find out what's going on. So Mr. Slavitt says, quote, we need to get to the bottom of this, and we need a completely transparent process from China. We need the WHO to assist in that matter. We don't feel like we have that now. So the suggestions are that the coronavirus may have been accidentally carried out of a laboratory in late 2019 in the city of Wuhan. But that speculation, that hypothesis, was drowned out last year by scientists' accounts of its likely path from animals host to humans in a natural setting or the market in Wuhan. The so-called spillover effect is the most plausible explanation, they say. But now the inquiries are on to investigate more earnestly what happened in that lab, because they say 3 people working in the lab, 3 researchers, contracted symptoms very similar to the virus in December of 2019. And I'm looking at the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times. All the papers have jumped on this story of this week again. They said 3 researchers from China's Wuhan Institute of Virology became sick enough in November 2019, that they sought hospital care, according to a previously undisclosed U.S. intelligence report that could add weight to growing calls for a fuller probe of whether the COVID-19 virus might have escaped from the laboratory. Now, remember when Trump said this last year, that we have strong evidence that the virus came from a lab in Wuhan? And people disallowed it because it was Trump. Now he said we have strong evidence. Well, that evidence is what we just read here. U.S. intelligence reports. So the details of this reporting go beyond a State Department fact sheet issued during the final days of the Trump administration, which said several researchers at the lab, a center for the study of coronaviruses and other pathogens, became sick in autumn 2019, quote, with symptoms consistent with both COVID-19 and common seasonal illness. A friend of mine was living in China. I was talking to him yesterday, and he's really pretty astute. He's been there for 8 years now. We were teachers together in Guiyang. He said to me, he always makes great little observations when we're talking about this issue. He says, if you're a researcher working in a lab with dangerous viruses like the coronavirus, and you got sick along with 2 other colleagues, would you just go to a regular hospital to get examined and take the chance of spreading a virus that you contracted from this laboratory? Think about that. No, you wouldn't do that. There must be protocol, right? That if anybody in this laboratory gets sick, whatever you do, don't go to a hospital in the general community. But that seems like what they did, because that's what they're saying. Well, if the Chinese government said, well, they just had a regular illness, that means they probably just went to a general hospital and they were walking around in public. Unless the Chinese government's lying.
Well, I think it's the latter.
In fact, they did get sick. They did not go to a general hospital, and they were tested, and when they found they had a virus. But they probably were walking around the city before they discovered it. And they knew that something could have happened. Perhaps they ignored it, underestimated it, or they were fully prepared, knew it was coming, But then it wouldn't have, who knows? I mean, why would Wuhan suddenly have this mass pandemic breakout if they were prepared for it? The bottom line is, I would speculate they got sick, they walked around, either they didn't tell the people they got sick, they completely were lackadaisical about how they went about treating themselves, or they were found out to have it and they underestimated the power of the virus to be transmitted throughout the city. But if it happened in November and they knew the spread was starting in December and it was January when it became a massive pandemic in Wuhan, you can see the progression from the lab breakout in November to the December's as an uptick and January full-blown massive pandemic and shutdown of the city. I'm going to go out on a limb and just say I'm leaning much closer to the lab breakout than a spillover effect in a marketplace where the bats were on an animal. And even Anthony Fauci, who's been on top of this, telling us to be safe and this and that since Trump's term, has come out and said, you know what? The likelihood could be there now. We need more investigation. But when Trump was in office, he didn't dare say that. And now he is. He knows something, or else he would never have come out and said that and changed his opinion. And what is it that we seek to gain by understanding whether it broke out in a lab or not? Well, one, we can't trust the Chinese to be testing this virus in a lab. Two, we need more transparency for any other situations like this which may arise. And three, we want to know how the damn thing spread to begin with to be able to be prepared for another such incident down the road. The whole world can benefit from the truth. Will we get the truth from the Chinese government? Reading a little bit more on the Wuhan lab debate. David Asher, again, I'm using the Wall Street Journal article here. David Asher, a former U.S. official who led a State Department task force on the origins of the virus for then Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, told a Hudson Institute seminar in March that he doubted that lab researchers became sick because of the ordinary flu. He doubts that they had the flu. In other words, he thinks they had the virus. Quote, I'm very doubtful that 3 people in highly protected circumstances in a level 3 laboratory working on coronaviruses would all get sick with influenza that put them in the hospital or in severe conditions all in the same week, and it didn't have anything to do with the coronavirus, end quote, he said. Adding that the researchers' illness might represent, quote, the first known cluster of COVID-19 cases, end of story. You tell me what you think now. See how this is gradually coming out? Now people are starting to be more forthright in what they think happened. Officials. It's taken a little time to get to this point because information's leaked. We're finding out something happened, finally. I'm really skeptical that this isn't the truth now. It's become too suspicious that it has been that right there. 3 researchers in a lab, all getting sick in the same week? Come on. In that lab? It's impossible. Well, I wouldn't say impossible. The flu is something that you can catch in China at that time of year. Viruses are everywhere. I got sick. I was in China at that time. I got 2 respiratory infections. One was pneumonia-like. There was a lot of nasty viruses going around in November in China. I will say that. And there's a lot of people that get sick in November and December. because they have the holidays. People are traveling, and it's just that the weather gets damp and cold. Wuhan's a miserable place at that time of year. It's rainy, it's cold, it's damp. So 3 people could get sick in a lab, but I mean, these people are in protected. They're not really out in the public like many people, unless they traveled. Who knows? And somebody carried it in. I won't completely disallow it. You can't. But fingers are pointing in another direction now at a laboratory leak. Interesting. Well, I think I'll end on that note. I didn't want to take on too much today. I look forward to Portland opening this week. Memorial Day weekend, we should be at low risk. Finally, restaurants enjoying at least almost getting full capacity and opening. By the way, the Portland Trailblazers are playing in the NBA playoffs, and now they will have fans.
Yeah, 8,000. 8,000 of them.
Is that what they said?
Yep, 8,000.
Fantastic. It's time to enjoy ourselves again. It's time to realize for America right now, the pandemic is over. We have a contagious virus out there still, but the pandemic is over. Get vaccinated if you haven't. Enjoy life. Get out to a restaurant. Go see a game. Go Blazers. I'm Citizen Smith. I'll talk to you on Friday.